Hey, everybody. Welcome to Conversations in Ken's Café. I'm, of course, your host, Ken Somerville. I'm glad that you guys are able to join me today. Today, we're going to be exploring aquaponics for the garden. Now, for you that don't understand what aquaponics is, I'll give you a quick explanation. It's feeding plants using fish waste. So, a cake. Aquaponics is an absolutely wonderful system. I had an aquaponics system actually in my basement for several years. I grew onions. I would go to the store, buy onions, cut the green top off, and just have the stalk and the root. I would literally put that into my aquaponics system, and it would grow. It would just continue growing the greens. And I'll tell you what, if you've never experienced it and you have a chance to, it is absolutely amazing because I would cut that green stalk. Not only were the scent or the flavonoids, okay, permeating the air like wow, just blow you away with that green onion smell and scent, but there would literally be liquid coming out of the stalk of the green onion. That's how much moisture there was. And when you ate that, oh, if you like onions, guys, it was like blow you away. But then I did romaine lettuce, and it was the same thing. The taste, the flavor was so much nicer. The lettuce was so crisp. It was just amazing what you can grow using fish waste. Now, I learned aquaponics from generally a guy out of Australia called Rob Bob. Okay. Amazing guy teaching aquaponics, doing systems, using a IBC tote where he cut the top off, flip it over. That was his grow bed. Everything was flowing down to the container underneath because the rest of the IBC tote was underneath. That was where the fish were kept and fed. And it was a continuous cycle of the water being pumped up to the top grow and then draining down to the bottom. Now, there's a lot of components in an aquaponic system that water needs to go through a biological change. It needs to go from nitrite to nitrate or nitrate to nitrite. I always get those two mixed up, but if you guys want to know, you can look it up. But it's a change in the chemical makeup of the fish waste. And in that change, the plant can actually take up the fertilizer that the fish is producing. So you need that biological exchange. And how you would do that, you would take the water, pump it up into what I did was called a swirl filter. So it would cycle around, and the particles, the harder or the larger particles, would settle out of the water, and it would be consumed by the biology, or I would drain that off and use it in the garden. And that's what I'm talking about, using an aquaponic system in your garden. Now, this past Monday, we had a wonderful guy on, Josh, and he has done it to an extreme because he's using the Leighton Morrison Horizontal soil system in conjunction with an aquaponic system to a certain extent. He's built his own stream in the grow bed. He waters his grow bed using capillary action, or it's soaking in, sucking up the moisture from his stream into the grow bed to keep everything moist. Now, the life that exists in that water and in the on the edges of a stream or a lake, you know, it's amazing to go out and you can, yeah, Yellow Skunk Farms, thank you, Lily. um it's amazing the life that you will find. I know when I was in, I think it was junior high, we went out to a local pond, took our microscopes out there, and we were looking at all this life under the microscope. And you're seeing tiny, tiny, fry, and you were seeing snails and all of this different life that exists there. Now, I'm going to bring up something, guys, and I think you guys are going to like it. Let me just go entire screen over here, like this. And you guys get to see my big screen, the picture. I look at these pictures all day, guys. This is one of my background pictures. But we're going to open up another tab, and we're going to go, because I'd saved this, and we're going to go to this one right here. Now, this is the Winogradsky or Gradsky column. And it should come up big, just like that. Now, if you guys can see this, what I'll do is I'll see if I can get this a little bit larger. Nope, doesn't look like I can. But we have the anaerobic and the aerobic. Okay, so in the middle here, this is what your EM1 and those formulas are. This is the biology that can move up and down in your column. So it can have both an anaerobic and an aerobic environment. It can survive in both. But what I want to point out is when you go down into the anaerobic, you're looking at a lot different biology than what's in the aerobic, because the anaerobic doesn't need oxygen. It doesn't have to have that oxygen to survive. And this is what you're going to find in an aquaponics system as the mainstay for biology. That's why, if you have a creek or a pond on your property that is clean, that isn't full of chemicals, and you use that water in your garden, you're much better off having that water, because it's got a different amount of biology or different type of biology that needs to be in our soil systems, which unfortunately the way we've been growing crops has been eliminated. As those chemicals have leached into our soil and went deeper and deeper, they've killed layers of biology. As they've went deeper, they've killed the majority of that anaerobic biology that's the foundation of life on our planet. Hey, why? Hey, Ghetto, when you consider that life moved from the liquid onto land and then has, created larger and larger life forms on land, if we don't have that foundational biology, and if we can't maintain what is termed the predator-prey model, where you have biology that can be consumed by the higher life forms of biology. So for our chart here, that's a sulfate-reducing bacteria is the very lowest. Then it goes to green sulfur bacteria, the purple sulfur bacteria. If we don't have these different life forms in our soil structure, then it doesn't matter if we have a high fungal dominated soil, it's not going to last, because what the food source for those entities is these lower life forms. So if we don't have them, we break that predator-prey model, and the prey species that we want, which is your fungal area of domination for growing crops, is not going to be there. And eventually those life forms are not going to be able to maintain themselves, especially in their health. Okay, we talk a lot about health and with biology, we need all the different layers for everything to sync together to be working properly. If we don't have this stuff, then we have a problem of a breakage in the food chain. And as it grows larger and larger and larger in that food chain that's broken, all of a sudden, everything above starts dying off. And then we have a total biological collapse, and we don't have any plants or humans or anything like that existing on this planet. And that's basically what it boils down to. And I hate to breathe that abrupt with you guys, but without those lower life forms, we can't have the upper life forms. So this is why I wanted to talk exactly about, using aquaponics in your gardens to help you to bring back those life forms. Oh, and here we have Ken in his native habitat, talking head. Yeah, I know. I keep trying to get more guests, guys. I'm working on it. And I know you guys are a bunch of you have really helped with that. I know Henry sent me a book from Robert Templer, A New Science of Heaven, looking at the plasma and the energy of the plasma. But yeah, we'll get into that on another show. But thank you so much for that, guys. But to get back to the aquaponic system and using it, it can be as simple. You don't have to set up a complete aquaponic system. Okay, like that can get pretty time consuming and costly. I did mine on the cheap. I made everything myself. I made my own swirl filters, and I made my own beds. I instead of buying, I had an ICB tote, but I actually used a cattle trough as a fish tank. And really, that's all you guys need, is to have a fish tank or access to the filter coming out of a fish tank. So if you got a pet store in your area that's selling fish, go in and ask them, if you can get the used filters, because it's quite simple to get this biology. You can take those filters, take them home, throw them in a 5-gallon bucket full of water, and wait. Okay. And it's like 5 to 7 days, maybe less, maybe a little bit more, depending on your temperature, your environment. And all of a sudden, that water is going to start smelling sweet. Use your nose, okay? Because the nose knows, okay? But when it starts smelling sweet, that's saying that there's a bloom of that aquatic biology in that water. And you take that water and you water your garden, okay? And you've only got 5 gallons, but you could take that 5 gallons, take, a cup into 10 cups, a cup into 10 cups. And all of a sudden you've got a large volume of water, and you can do a soil drench with it. That's what, in a lot of ways, what I would recommend, because remember, these are biology that doesn't want to exist in air. So you want that biology to soak into your soil and get down in the lower levels of your soil, so that you can create that ecosystem. You can have that lower levels of biology that's necessary as a food source for the higher levels of biology. That's us. Okay. And the ultimate thing for us, or you want to talk about, the whales eating plankton, and, elephants, etc., larger life forms than us. But we're doing this, a lot of it, for us. We're not doing it for any other purpose, but to have health and vitality for us. And we need those lower life forms. We need to remember and keep it in the back of our brains somewhere that this predator prey model exists in reality, and we can work within that to make sure that we have the different layers of biology in our soil, in our garden. So we'll go back, and you guys can have just a straight fish tank. You can have, a complete aquaponic system. You can look up Rob Bob on YouTube, learn how to build your own aquaponic system. For me, I of course had to have it indoors because like it freezes up here. Okay. Down he's in Australia, he has his outside. So places where you don't freeze, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, all these places that don't get that cold, you can have it outside. Now, if you're going to go with an actual aquaponic system, there's two types that you need to look at for gardening or for growing, and that's one that's integrated in with your system, and this has been done in the cannabis industry as well, where they have the aquaponics and the cannabis growing in the same system, and then you can have one that's detached. Okay, so you're doing the aquaponics or fish farming really over here, because as soon as it's detached and you're not growing plants, it's a fish farm. It's not an aquaponics, but using that water to water the greenhouse and your garden, your grow, and that's a detached system. One of the reasons a lot of people have went to a detached system is then they don't have to worry about what they're spraying on the plants. Because you got to remember, if you spray something on in your plant that kills your fish, you don't have an aquaponic system anymore. So you really have to be careful if you're going to be going with a full aquaponic setup. Now, I've seen these, as small as, you can buy them now with a little fish tank and a thing on top for growing and a grow light, the whole nine yards. I would say that would be great for growing herbs, in the kitchen, uh, fresh basil and, all this other stuff right there, and very healthy, vibrant. And then I've seen them massive setups, acres, okay, literally acres of aquaponics growing different crops. And now some crops grow really well in an aquaponic system, some don't. Some you need to have the components that are in a soil based system for those plants. Now, tomatoes is one of those plants that doesn't do as well, but a lot of that has to do with how you're running your aquaponic system. Yellow Skunk Farms is doing it in such a way where he's got the soil and he's just watering the soil with his system, where if you're running a complete aquaponic system and you have a soil bed, but it's continuous flow into that soil bed, then you have problems in your soil mix. It goes anaerobic, your roots die off, etc. But that's in how you set things up. You don't need a continuous flow. You need a flood and drain system, or you need, like what Yellow Skunk Farms has done, is a wicking system, just using the aquaponics water to maintain the moisture in your soil structure so it doesn't get overly moist, because that causes problems. Cannabis is a lot like tomatoes. Now, I started and grew out my first cycle of cannabis in my aquaponic system. Okay. And they never had a problem. They were healthy and happy. When they got to a certain height, I didn't have the height I needed to grow, so I actually had to take them out, put them in containers, and just use the aquaponics water. But you can do that quite easily. Hey, Case or Cass. I don't know why I want to call you Case all the time, man. Sorry, Cass. But Cass does this in a lot of ways because he's soaking his ground, okay, and flooding his ground, and he's getting a lot of those aquatic microorganisms. Now he's also using fish brew. He can also use ensign soil, which is a bacterial, aquatic bacterial that he can add in as well. And you can do these things as well. So if you're setting up a soil system, say you're setting up a raised bed indoors, more than outdoors. I would do it outdoors as well, but indoors, and you're setting up, and I always use Leighton Morrison's horizontal system simply because it incorporates the sand, silt, clay, and organic material into its separate zones. So you're having the complete diversity of biology that it can exist in that, because you've got the aerobic and the anaerobic, and you've got all the divisions for the life of the biology. You've got their housing. Okay, the bottom you have the anaerobic that doesn't like oxygen, and there's not a lot of oxygen way down there, and it goes up. If you're using fish brew, you're using these different products, you can spray that on, and you can see absolutely amazing results. You want to find out commercially, a commercial size grow, you can look up on our channel Tom Landry's interviews. He's a commercial cannabis grower on the East Coast that has actually built another set of Leighton Morrison's horizontal soil beds, and he's seeing like amazing results using that system, because he has the different life forms at the different layers. Now in Canada, unfortunately, I can't get a lot of these products. Fish Brew is still working on getting into Canada. So is Instant Oil, Ensign Soil, sorry, to get their products into Canada. It takes a long time. So I don't have that option. So if you're somewhere in the world, you don't have the option to get these kinds of products, then you need to create them. And that literally is going down to a healthy pond where you can, grab the water and use that to water your rock and sand at the bottom. When you're building a horizontal bed, you're putting in gravel and coarse sand in the bottom, packing it down, watering it fully. So there's just a little skim of water. The water is holding. It means your sand is full. The sand does actually hold water. You press that down, you make it nice and flat, and that's where you would put that fish water in that layer. And then you're going to add in your sand, silt, clay, and organic material into that zone. And you can use that water again because it's full of life, remember? And then you have your organic layer on top. Hey, I'll telescope uranium. I don't even want to say it, Your Honor, but I love the name anyway. It's good to see you here. Now, so you're building this. Let's just say you're building a raised bed outside, okay, for your garden outside. You can do the same thing. You can add that biology in those bottom layers to help to get it all together, to have all the different layers of biology. Now, especially if you've got a raised bed that has a bottom where it's not draining through, then you actually are kind of in trouble, because you need holes in case it rains. You get too much water, everything drowns. But when you put in that biology and you put in your different layers, it's going to slowly soak in, and it's going to join the biology that exists in your soil. And if that biology isn't there, you're going to be adding that biology into where it needs to be. That's one of the huge things that when you're creating your garden space, You want to make sure that you're creating those different levels of biology. You're going to be wanting to add that, aquatic biology and doing a soil soak, a soil drench, so that it can flow down through the structure of your soil deeper and deeper and deeper. This is the biology that's going to be mining that sand, silt, and clay. It's the ones that are down there that are going to be in the zone mining the rock that's in your soil. It's going to be helping break all of this material out at a molecular level. So the calcium, the magnesium, the molybdenum, etc., it's going to be mining those deeper layers to be able to bring up to that, you know, effective microorganisms. I always want to say EM1, but that's a trademark. But those biology that can move from the anaerobic to the aerobic, the stuff that's way down there, that aquatic biology you've added in, that's mining, the different minerals, etc., out of the substrate, brings it up to that close to that middle zone. That middle zone, they're your truck drivers. Okay, they're going to head down, grab a bunch of calcium. They're going to bring it up to the guys up at the top that need that calcium for building, whatever cells they're building, whether that's more biology or whether that's a plant root or, the plant leaf, the plant stalk. Without all of that, you have to supply all these nutrients. And look at the periodic table of elements. There's a lot of different elements there. You need all of those elements. You need all the minerals. That's one of the reasons that you can use a little pinches of salt in your water is going to actually help the process of the water molecules moving into the cells. And that's us as well, guys. Really, really important for the human body is having a little bit of salt in your water. Now, you're not going to be drinking salt water out of the ocean. That's too much salt. But if you're drinking, putting a little pinch of say, Celtic sea salt or a good quality, rock salt, C90, which has like 90 minerals in it, that's going to be drawing into your cells. And you need that to help draw the water into our cells as much as it is for the plants. Hey, wild edibles, it's going to be a total game changer when you add in that lower life of biology if you don't have it. Now, if you've already got that aquatic biology in your soil system, well, bonus. Okay, you're a step ahead of probably 99% of the people that are gardening out there. Because face it, a lot of gardeners have no idea that they need that lower level of biology. We haven't been taught that. We've been taught that we need, NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And that's all we need. But yet, over the last years, they keep adding to that. And now, we talked to Leighton Morrison, and we need the C NPK, the carbon, because that carbon is a base molecule needed for the construction of every single cell. And we're all made of cells, anything organic, made up of cells. So we need that carbon. And once we put that into place, then we go back to the biology that stores carbon in the soil, is made of carbon, is making the cells of the plant, which are full of carbon. It's such a wondrous cycle when you really start to understand that all these layers we can manipulate naturally, no chemicals added, okay? And we can help things. Ken needs to nose dab. No, Ain't gonna happen. I'm not doing dabs. No, 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 no. Shh. No dabs. Okay. Anyway, guys, take your bad boy. Definitely a bad boy. Okay. It is all about health for our plants and for ourselves, for our animals, for the fish in the sea, the bugs that fly in the air. It's that synergy. It's that relationship that if we break that relationship, we run into problems. Why are our fields not producing as much? Why is the food we're consuming at such a low level of nutrients in the food? Because we've knocked out the biology. We've been slowly over decades knocking it further back and further back and further back. Even the seeds that are being produced, they're being fed NPK. They're not healthy. They don't have all the biology inside of the seed that is necessary for it to be healthy. That's why we focus on collecting, the seeds that we're growing from plants we're growing, okay, and the heirloom seeds, because they are to be classed as an heirloom seed. You pretty much have to grow it in soil, a more living soil, not necessarily a true living soil as we know it, but at least a lot of these companies are growing in soil, so they're getting a lot of more of the biology into the seeds. Now, when I was learning about growing cannabis, the gentleman I was following, the Rev, and he has his own seeds that he sells. They're all growing in the a true living soil methodology, and they can actually start in 100% compost pile. Okay, which normally speaking, if you went and bought a seed, you would never try to start it in your compost pile. Your compost pile would literally eat your seed, break it down and consume it and go, oh, yeah, baby, I like it. Snacks. But if you've got a seed that was growing in a true living soil, the outside of that seed is coated massively with good biology that's there to protect that seed. That's where, if you're getting seeds that have been grown hydroponically through a hydroponic system and you tried to start them in a true living soil system, good luck, because the biology that's in that system is super. It's going to consume it just like it would in a compost pile, because it doesn't have the protection. Hey, Rhythms, doesn't have the protection necessary on the outside of the seed of that life, of that biology that's there to protect it so that it doesn't get consumed. So there's a real difference to having things growing in biology and having things growing in a chemical based, situation. And that's whether that's in, an indoor grow, whether that's in a farm field where, you're growing, seed grain, or you're growing food for your cattle or your sheep or your horses or whatever. If it doesn't have that life in the soil, if it's only fed, chemicals, it's not going to have that nutrition. It's not going to have that balance of biology that when it's consumed goes into the animal or our stomach and helps to repopulate our biology. Because you face it, it's not just the nutrition in the food, it's the biology that's in each and every cell that we're consuming. So, and I know, like, okay, I really apologize for anybody that is, into eating only vegetables and that. And they have this thing in their head that they're not going to eat meat because it's alive. Guys, I hate to say it, but every single cell, whether it's a plant or an animal, is alive. It's full of biology. So you're consuming, you're truly a carnivore. because you're consuming this biology, which is alive. Okay, tomorrow we're going to see it with Matt from Shooting the Soil. We're going to be able to see the biology moving around under the microscope. So I know that a lot of the people that are into that thing are going to really get upset with me. Unfortunately, guys, I hate to point out this is a fact. All cells rely on biology. The cells are full of biology. You're eating biology, whether it's a plant or it's an animal. So biology is biology. Get over it. Okay. Now, I know that 5% of the population on our planet can be healthy on that kind of a diet where it's only doing plants and vegetables, etc. Only 5%. The rest of us, we need the materials that are coming from the animal side, those proteins. And you just can't duplicate that, as they found out when they tried to duplicate, a lot of different things over the years. Science just can't replicate nature. It's really, they just don't do it. And yeah, it's all about the biology. All life on our planet is based on this, and it's based on the aquatic biology as the foundation. And that's where I wanted to talk about the aquaponics and the fish emulsions, and all the different fish biology that you can get, and having that in there. That's why I brought up the Winninowski scale. Is we need to understand we need those different levels of biology. We need that foundation to grow healthy, strong plants, just like we need a good foundation to put up a skyscraper, or else it's got to go poof. Okay, you're not going to be very happy if your house goes over. Okay, it's really the foundation that we're missing in probably 99% of our soils. So if we can bring that back, whether you start your own aquaponic system at home for, just a small one for growing some herbs, you have a little fish tank with 1 or 2 fish, you can actually do that. Or if you're going into your local fish shop and you're getting the filters and you're creating this, you're going out to your local stream that's full of life, make sure it's got fish in it. Okay, then you're going to be getting that life. You're going to be getting a lot of that foundational biology that is necessary to maintain that predator prey in your soil structure. So the aquaponics, the fish, is the foundation. The middle section, or the EM of effective microorganisms that goes back and forth, is the next layer that you need to focus on. And that's where products like EM1, you can get these products and you can add them into that next section of life. So I'm talking again, a soil drench. Okay, because you want to have that moisture cycle through, percolate through your soil so that it gets to that right zone where they need to live. So look at it this way. Okay, if I'm in Mexico, okay, I'm looking for a house that is going to stay cool. If I'm in Antarctica, I'm looking for a house that's going to stay warm. That's a different zone. So in our soil, in that mid zone, we're going to have a mixture of aquatic and anaerobic or aerobic biology. Now I'm using aquatic for the anaerobic biology because that's generally where you're going to find anaerobic biology, in your local nature, in your areas in a lake. Okay, unless you're going to be digging down, into a deep aquifer, you're not going to be finding so much of the anaerobic biology. Hey, Shawnee, uh, does he cook it a particular way? In what state do you eat flesh meat? Does he cook it in a particular? I'm not sure what your meaning on there is. Rhythms of creation. So um, I'm in Alberta, Canada. Uh, we actually have one of the best beef cattle in the world. Your triple A Angus beef. Um, but anyway, I cook it just like I would cook anything else. I mainly eat a lot of hamburger, to be perfectly honest. It's cheap and easy, and it's the building blocks that I'm made of. I'm not made of green. I don't see any green running through my veins. No chlorophyll. Although blood and chlorophyll are very, very close on a molecular level. You can look at the chlorophyll as the blood of the plant, and blood, in the human animals, or a lot of your terrestrial animals, they have red blood. Okay, red meat, red blood. I know part of that's just oxygen. It's blue if there's no oxygen or something like that. Anyway, that's going off on a sidetrack. So the key, guys, is we want to try to have those different layers. So that EM layer, that effective microbiology that can move back and forth, we want that to get that in there as well. And that's products like your EM1, a lot of your composts, etc., good quality, are going to have a lot of that biology being developed in there that can transition, and you want that transitional biology. And then on the top layer, you want the aerobic biology, the stuff that's breaking down, the organic material that you're putting down more so than anything else. So your lower biology is breaking down more of your sand, your silt, your clay. A little bit of the organic material is being consumed there, but that's mainly the job of the effector of microorganisms, or your middle layer of biology that can move up and down. And then the top is going to mainly your aerobic biology, which is going to break down your wood chips, your straws, your chop and drop, whatever you're putting on top, your mulch. That's going to be your aerobic biology, because it's up in the air. It has to have that. But once you have those layers built in a soil system, and you keep it, happy and healthy by maintaining, a good moisture content, and you keep adding more organic material on top and letting it slowly work its way into your soil structure, just like how Mother Nature is doing it. Okay, you're going to find all of a sudden you're not having to add a lot more material than what you already have. You're going to start to cycle everything fully, and then you're going to be just basically doing foliar sprays, because the life in the soil has been taken care of. You have the different layers of biology in your soil structure, and then it's just a matter of helping the biology build the cells of the plant, and that's your foliar sprays. Now, using fish water as a foliar spray. I said do it as a soil drench. It's so much better. But at the same time, you can do it as a foliar spray for a different reason. Now, you're not trying to get that aquatic biology to live in your plant. It's just not going to happen. It doesn't want to live in that zone, but you're bringing takeout. You're literally bringing that biology to the biology that's on your leaves, or in your leaves, in your stalk, and you're giving them a food source that they don't normally get. And it may have components in that biology that's being consumed that only can come from that type of a biology. So it's either going to get mined from 3 or 4 or 10 or 20 feet deep in your soil structure, or you're giving it to the leaf and it's going to be grabbed right away and not need to transition through the soil structure to get up to the cells that are being built in your plant. You're giving it there. So that's where I'm talking. We can help, everything grow by doing things naturally that don't harm anything. They're not killing any biology that exists that's necessary. It's supplying a food source. So that's just, hey, Dave, it's really an amazing thing that we can help these processes. We can help the biology that's growing our plants by giving them the building materials that are necessary, and then they don't have to expend any energy bringing those building materials up through the soil structure into the plant structure to the where the biology is working on that new cell for that stalk or that leaf. We're supplying those, and we're cutting back on energy. So you can look at it as you're uh, setting up a homestead, and you're not going to be going on grid, etc. That's the kind of idea I'm talking about. By doing the foliar, you don't have to attach to the grid and spend money on the power. You're getting it right there and giving it to where it's needed to be without having to have that monthly expense. Is the one of the ways that I can phrase it for you guys. So when you're looking at it in that direction, okay, or from that direction, then you're starting to clue in on how things are going to work in everything around you. Because face it, guys, if we're putting stuff on our skin, that's like doing a foliar spray on your plant. What are you putting on your skin? Are you putting chemicals on your skin? Ladies, your makeup, it all soaks into your skin. Are you putting good things on your skin? Are you putting coconut oil on your skin that's going to help to moisturize? Or are you putting on a sunscreen that's sucking the moisture out of your flesh, leaving a chemical coating, killing the biology that's needed on your flesh? Yeah, it's like these hand soaps, these cleansers, kills 99% of the bacteria, and I'm gonna cover my hands in it. Oh yeah, I'm gonna cover my face in it, and all the biology that's here that's protecting me from contagions that are in the air. I just killed all that off. Does that make a whole lot of sense? To take out my protection, that everything that's protecting me from bad biology, the stuff we don't want. You guys think about that for a minute. Now we talk about, it's all about the bottom line. It's all about that dollar number. All these companies that are selling this stuff, they're making millions and millions, and they're spending millions and millions on marketing campaigns, on advertising, telling us that A equals Z, when A doesn't even equal, go to B. 1 + 1 is 3. They're blatantly misrepresenting what is actually happening. And one of the other ones, and I'm going to do a show on this very soon, is on building construction and our values, because you got to really twisted how things have been scientifically manipulated. And it's amazing because we talk about a lot about this. You know, the truth is out there and it will set us free. We just got to get through the craziness, that's happening. But a lot of this stuff is coming out, just like the biology. The truth about the foundation of life on our planet is getting out there. When we had Dr. James White on and at the last time, and he literally said, yes, it's all about the biology because life is that basic when we allow ourselves to think about it on that basic level. All organic life relies on biology because it's the cell division that the biology is in control of. That is the key. And I know my wife's probably standing upstairs going, oh my God, he's starting to ramble. Okay. When we can take biology, stick it on the outside of the space station, and it freezes over, and then they scrape it off, I think it was 6 months later or 3 months later, bring it in, and the biology starts to come back to life. Biology is pretty tough. It can live in the deepest parts of our ocean. It can live inside of the volcano. It can live at the edge of a volcano at the bottom of the ocean, and fish can live there that we've never seen anywhere else because they can only live there because that's the foundational, housing that they need. You got to be looking at some amazing, amazing stuff, guys. Mother Nature has created this. We can help her bring life back into our soils, into our lakes, into our streams, into our oceans by following the basic idea of putting biology back where it needs to be. And if we continue as good stewards of the biology, if we become defenders of the biology, and that's if you guys join our YouTube channel, and it's under $5 a month, okay, you become a defender of the biology. We need those defenders out there, not just to help support our channel, but to help support our planet, our species, our future. Our future is following the pattern of giving biology back to the system, creating a biological balance back in both our oceans and our soils, in our air. And one of these days, I know that it's a newer science looking at the biology in the air. There's a wonderful lady. I think she's on the East Coast that, she's just setting up her lab, etc. So eventually we'll get her onto the show and talk about the biology that exists in the air around us. So I tell you guys, every time you breathe, you're breathing in biology. You're also breathing in building blocks that are in the air, that dust that's floating in the air that you're breathing into your lungs. It's actually a lot of that stuff's being broken down by the biology, put into your system, and is feeding your cells and helping you to stay healthy. If you're in a good environment, if you're living in Hong Kong where you can't go outside and breathe the air, you're not going to have as nice of a existence as you would if you're living in, say, Alaska, where the air is crystal clear and clean, and it isn't anymore. You're finding microplastics in Antarctica. Okay, we have to deal with these things. So if we continually bring more biology, more diverse biology back into our systems, back into our lakes and rivers and our soils, the biology can break those plastics down. Okay. Literally, Leighton Morrison did a glyphosate. Okay. They destroyed his lawn, his yard while he was on vacation. He came back and he literally did a glyphosate biology where he created the biology that consumes glyphosate, okay, sprayed it onto his yard and got rid of all the glyphosate, got rid of all that Roundup, that death, okay, and then he was able to put biology back into his environment. So we can do this on large scale. We can flip a piece of property that's been had Roundup on it for decades. We can literally flip that over in basically a season. Okay, if we put enough of this particular biology that eats the glyphosate, takes the molecule and breaks it apart. Okay, breaks that down, and then it's no longer glyphosate. It's down to its original molecules, its original components, and those components can be used by the biology to build other stuff. Just like, baby, I can build a greenhouse out of 2x2s or 2x4s or 2x6s, then I can tear it down and I can build something else with it. I can build a raised bed out of that material, and I can take that and I can build something else. I can build a beehive, recycling all this stuff. And that's what Mother Nature does with these components, like your glyphosate. She has already accessed the mechanics of breaking this stuff down, because all these components are in nature. When we combine components to make things like glyphosate, all of the base structures, all those base molecules, Mother Nature's already had to deal with all of those different components. She's already got biology that can deal with that. It's a matter of us humans finding that right biology that breaks that down. Just like there's biology that eats plastics. Okay, we're all worried about this stuff. Mother Nature already has the biology in place. We just got to make sure that we find that right biology, bringing it in to our system so it can break that out, and we can take those components and make healthy plants, healthy us, healthy animals, healthy fish, etc. We have an opportunity to understand things that most of our ancestors would shake their blooming heads at and go, huh? What? No way, man. You can't do that. But yeah, we can. We can. And all it takes is understanding that we need diverse biology everywhere. The more diverse the biology is, the more chance we have of finding all of these components broken down that we don't want in our environment, that we want that material to be making healthy stuff for us to consume, our animals to consume, etc., etc., etc. Lily, let's see. Mother Nature has got this. We just need to stay out of her way, and we need to figure out the ways that we can get not in her way, but help her along the way, to help her not have to expend any more excess energy doing A, B, and C, when we can help her to reach Z and have that plant that's like, wow, this corn cob, oh my God, it's melting in my mouth. Okay, that's what we want. And we can do it, guys. It starts with the aquatic biology as the base and moving up in the biology. If we combine all that stuff, and Kelpie Wilson and I talked about Terra Preta, it's a soil that is phenomenally alive. That's what we want, guys. We want life. We want life in our soils and in everything that we have around us. The more life, the better. Anyway, guys, let's see. That's the hour. Let's take a look. We've got for tomorrow, we have Matt from Shooting the Soil. So you guys want to check out what's going on in microscopy. This is the one that you are going to love to see, because we're going to see through his new microscope some absolutely amazing things. Have a great day, Shawnee. Then we have Daniel Shaw. Now, Daniel Shaw has been on the History Channel, and he's talking vortexes, energy fields globally. He's got all kinds of different books on vortex energy, etc. He's also talking about vortex in plants in our gardens. He's going to be with us on Tuesday, and then we'll see what's after that. I don't have any guests booked until next Monday again, but we'll see if we can get some more guests on so that I'm not just a talking head, right? Okay, guys, love you all. We will see you tomorrow, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.